Ursi's Unique Eats. I'm Ursula, also known as Ursi, and this is my kitchen. Today I am whipping up one of my summertime favorites. I am making light cheddar corn chowder. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Soup? Summer? Something doesn't seem quite right here. Every summer, my girlfriends and I go down to the beach, except of course this summer, safety first. And when we get there, we go right to this place called the Chowder Hut and we get chowder. So this recipe was inspired by my many trips to the beach, but it's also a lightened up version because I feel like starting your beach day with a very heavy cup of chowder just makes you feel bloated and not so great. So if you're interested in making a light cheddar corn chowder, come check out the ingredients that I'm using. The ingredients you'll need to make my lightened up corn chowder are as follows. 6 slices of center cut bacon. I really like center cut bacon. You can use whatever kind of bacon you like. 1/4 onion diced. You want to bet like 1-inch dice on it. Salt and pepper. We'll be using about a teaspoon of each, maybe half a teaspoon of pepper, teaspoon of salt. So just have a couple of teaspoons on hand. 1 teaspoon of turmeric. That's the real secret ingredient in this corn chowder. It really gives it a great flavor. 1½ cup of diced potatoes. 1/4 cup of flour. 4 cups of low sodium chicken broth. 1 cup of 1% milk. Again, because this is a lightened up version, I'm using lighter ingredients. If you want to go ahead and use heavy cream, which is more traditionally used in chowders, go right ahead, but this is a lightened up version, so I'm using the 1% milk. 3 to 4 cups of frozen corn kernels. You can, if you really like corn, you can use 4 cups. If you're like, I'm not so big on the corn, use 3. And 1 cup of reduced fat cheddar cheese. Not non-fat cheddar cheese, that stuff doesn't melt. The reduced fat gives it a good creamy, cheesy flavor, saving you a little bit of like calories and bloat. Because after I eat chowder, sometimes I get a little bloated and that's not what I want this summertime. But that's all you'll need to make the corn chowder. So let's head over to the stove and get this baby cooking. The beautiful thing about this recipe is if you have a large enough pot, you can make it all in one pot. This pot's actually a little too big for the soup, but it works for me. So you could just get a regular old soup pot and heat it over like a medium-low flame. First, we're going to fry our bacon. So I'm just adding my bacon in strips. I'm not greasing the pan because actually bacon kind of omits a ton of grease while it's cooking. You can hear it sizzling already doing that. And I just don't add the extra grease because I think that that's plenty of grease. One thing you might notice about this already is that I fry the bacon in full strips. Some people chop up the bacon and cook it with onions. I feel like when I do that, I never get the bacon as crispy as I like it. I like a crispy bacon. So I'm just gonna fry my bacon until it's a good crispy consistency. You all know what frying bacon looks like. And then I'll check back in with you guys then. All right, so my bacon is cooked, it's nice and crisp, and right now it is cooling on a plate over there. Pro tip, don't throw your bacon back on the same plate that you had it sitting on when it was raw, because then you're gonna get raw meat juice all over your freshly cooked bacon. I like to kind of clean off the plate or put a paper towel on it, just so you don't risk any contamination. No one wants to get sick from corn chowder. So, now that the bacon's out of the pot, if you look down here, you see we got a lot of like little blackened bits, we got a lot of grease still hanging out in the pot. We're gonna use this grease to our advantage and we're going to cook our onions in it. So make sure your pot cools down a little bit because you don't want to burn the onions. You just want them to be translucent. So I have my heat on my stove all the way down low. And I'm gonna sprinkle my onions in. Get all of them out. And we're gonna cook them till they're translucent. So that means until like you kind of see through them. It should take about like 5 to 10 minutes. It really depends on your pot and your onions. So check back in with you when the onions are nice and translucent. All right, the onions are beautifully translucent. Remember, translucent means that like you can kind of not see exactly through them, but that they're not brown or burnt, and that they're not like fully cooked yet. It's a little tricky, but I think you guys can definitely get it. Now we're gonna do something that makes this soup look really ugly. So please bear with me. You're gonna see the soup's gonna look super ugly, and then in 10 seconds it's gonna look beautiful. We are going to add all of our seasonings. So we're going to add a teaspoon of salt to our onions, We're gonna add half a teaspoon of pepper. I know that seems like a lot, but remember there's not a whole lot of seasonings in here. And then we're going to add a whole teaspoon of turmeric. Remember, like I said, this is the real secret ingredient. It also gives it a really nice yellow color with the corn. Now we're going to stir it into the onions, and this is where it starts to look like just nasty. I remember the first time I was testing this, I was like, oh my God, this looks gross. See? Totally gross. Now we're gonna make it look even grosser. If that's a word. More gross, grosser? Not really sure. And we're gonna add our flour. This is really going to help thicken up the soup. Remember, we're using some low-fat ingredients, so we need something to help thicken it up. Okay. Bear with me while this looks gross. You're gonna give it a little stir. And I know, you're about to think like, ew, Ursi, this is nasty. Don't worry, it's all gonna come together into a beautiful soup. It's in its ugly duckling phase right now. All right, so once your things look clumpy and gross like mine do, now it's time to add in your 4 cups of chicken broth and your potatoes. So watch, we're gonna slowly add our chicken broth. Awesome, we're gonna give that a stir. Okay, see, starting to look a little less gross. Takes a few minutes, but it starts to look less gross. And now we're going to add our diced potatoes. Now these are totally uncooked, they're hard. So we need to cook them. So you're gonna add your potatoes, followed by a cup of water. I know I didn't mention that cup of water when I was listing out the ingredients, and I'm sorry, but sometimes I really need to look at the broth to see like, does this need a little water or not? So I'm just gonna grab some from my sink and add some water. There we go. Now, this is the hardest part of making this soup. You have to bring the pot to a boil, and it's a big pot, so crank it up to high. We're gonna bring it to a boil, and then once it's at a boil, we're gonna cook it down on low, let it simmer for about 15 minutes. So I'll check back in with you after our soup boils and it's simmered for 15 minutes. All right, the soup has been simmering for about 15 minutes. Now, the perfect way to check if this was a successful 15 minutes is to just grab a spoonful of potato and then take a small fork and just try to press your fork in. Ah, look at that. My fork went in really easily. It actually split the potato a little bit. That means our potato is soft enough to eat. So our soup is ready. I try to check the biggest potato I can find because not every chunk is cut to the exact same size. It's a homemade soup. But 2 big chunks are ready, so I'm safe to assume all of the potatoes are ready. So I'm just gonna give it a nice stir. And with the heat on low, I'm going to add in my corn. Now I'm using frozen corn, and the corn is still pretty frozen. So it's gonna take me about 2 or 3 minutes to cook that corn through. Just wanna add the corn, give it a good stir, really disperse it in there. It's starting to look like a good corn chowder. And now we're going to add our cup of milk slowly. Make sure your flame's on low. There's nothing worse than burning milk, especially on a soup. Ugh. Okay, give that a nice stir. This should give it a nicer color, a more palatable color. Not that like dark yellow, like a nice light creamy yellow. And last, we're going to add our cheese. Now, after we add the cheese, if our soup still looks a little thick, we might add another cup of water, but right now it's looking just about at that right soupy consistency that I like to see. We're gonna add all the cheese. Love that good cheese flavor. You wanna gently stir it so that it gets all over, and you'll notice it starts to melt down right away because the soup is nice and warm. All right, look at that, melting the cheese. All right, once the cheese melts, I'm gonna just take a quick little taste of the soup to make sure that it doesn't need any extra salt or pepper or even turmeric. And then I'm just gonna let it cook for about 3 minutes and our soup will be ready to eat. So I'm seeing a good amount of melted cheese. Now, I'm just gonna take a nice little spoonful. Be careful not to burn your mouth. Oh my God, seasoned perfectly. So I'm gonna let this cook for about 3 minutes, then we'll add the bacon and it's time to serve. See you in 3 minutes. This has come together beautifully. It's time for the final step. We are just going to add in our chopped bacon. I know a lot of recipes keep the bacon in there the whole time, and yes, you do get a ton more bacon flavor when you do that, but then I feel like it's soggy bacon, and I like a good crisp bacon. So stir your bacon in. And you can leave it to cook for another minute or two, or you can serve it right away. It's totally up to you. This soup also keeps great. I've put it in smaller Tupperwares and frozen it in months past. And it heats up beautifully. So even though this makes a big pot of soup, it keeps for a while in the fridge, and it keeps for like 2 months in the freezer. So I'm gonna spoon myself up a bowl of this, and I'll meet you at the island to let you know how it tastes. All right, the wait is over. I have a bowl of my light cheddar corn chowder here. It is warm, it smells incredible. I'm just gonna jazz it up a little bit more before I dig in. I have some leftover cheese, because you know, when you buy a bag of cheese and you don't use it all, you have leftovers. I'm gonna sprinkle this with some extra cheese on top, because who doesn't love cheese? Especially on soup. And then I have some bacon bits that I put set to the side. I'm just gonna pop those right there in the middle. Oh, this looks incredible. I'm Ursi from Ursi's Unique Eats. Thank you so much for cooking with me. If you tried this recipe, let me know how it went down below in the comment section. And make sure you like and subscribe to our channel, because we put out videos every Thursday. And I say we because my incredible fiance does all the editing, filming, and taste testing for me. So I really don't feel like this is solely my channel, but this is solely my bowl of soup. So enjoy.